trust on BBC Radio 1.
In new music we trust on BBC Radio 1.
Trust us to bring you the best new music
from across the UK and from around the world.
Go! Come on! In new music we trust
on BBC Radio 1.
Are you ready? Come on! Now. BBC Radio 1.
BBC Radio 1.
Okay. Are we having a good time at this so far? What we're gonna do is turn over the page for the next chapter. Does anybody want to hear some drum and bass right about now? Yeah, that's looking good for real. Okay, let me see one hand in the air. And make some noise for the one and only my DJ, Mr. Andy. See ya.
20 years ago, drum and bass was a culture of illegal warehouse raves, local pirate radio stations, and tape packs that would be passed around from mate to mate. Today, it's selling out shows worldwide and topping the charts thanks to names like Chasing Status, DJ Fresh, and Sub Focus. And do you know where they all started out? On a label that is celebrating its 20th year in the game. It's responsible for some of the genre's biggest chart hits and the most loved underground bangers.
31 seconds.
It's a label that's spearheaded by the undisputed king of drum and bass, and that label is...
When I think of Ram Records and Andy C, I think of big, massive, sweaty raves.
I remember being at a rave and saying I want to be the guy in the booth. Basically want to be Andy C, do what he's doing.
The most relentless, energetic, technically perfect DJing there is.
In terms of him as a selector, he puts that into action in terms of the people that he signs.
Whenever we went into record shops, and if you were lucky enough to see a brand new Ram release, it was always literally a buy on site.
Them guys and Andy has, made some huge tunes, broken many a tune, started many an artist's careers.
It was always a label that we wanted to be signed to. Just always wanted to get that cut on Ram.
In terms of the label that defines artists and defines the role of a label within drum and bass, I think you'd look to Ram.
I'm Mistajam, and recently I took a trip to the Ram Records headquarters in Hornchurch, Essex, to meet up with Andy and his business partner Scott, aka Red One. On the top floor of their building, right next to a busy main street, we got down to the nitty-gritty. Over the next hour, we're going to hear all about the first Ram release, which really put the label on the map.
That was the track that opened the doors for both me and Andy, specifically with Andy with his DJing.
Andy's insane style of DJing.
With the sounds of the impeccable, the strange and powerful, the Andy C.
The sci-fi sound which they pioneered.
Funky, futuristic sound that was very unique to Ram.
Their legendary club night.
Complete roadblock, queues round the block.
The first D&B track which broke the charts and the Radio 1 playlist.
That was an extreme game changer.
And all the amazing artists which started out on Ram Records.
Yeah, if Ram Records weren't about, then probably wouldn't be sitting in now.
But first, we're going to take it way, way back to the Sour Mash EP, the very first Ram release, Ram 01. A record Andy made when he was just 15, long before the days when you could make a tune on your computer. It was a painstaking process which required some serious patience.
If you listen to it today, there's about 3 million tunes in them 4 tunes, because I had all these ideas. But the technical side of it is that it was made on an S900 sampler, Akai, which was monophonic.
We don't want to geek out with all the details, but basically what Andy is saying is that he had to record each note individually, and it took him ages.
And then do the percussion, and then the drums, and then the bass.
Luckily for Andy, it was around this time that he met Ant Miles, a fellow producer with more experience who took Andy under his wing. The two of them would end up producing some of the label's biggest tracks under the names Origin Unknown and as Ram Trilogy with Shimon.
So where did you meet him?
Where did we meet him? Friend of the family. And he come round and I was working on the beats, poked his head around the door. He's like, what the hell was that?
He was spinning some drum breaks. I was like, wicked, Andy, you know, this sounds really cool. I've got this new studio around the corner. Why don't we sort of bag it all up and take it round to mine and let's see what happens. Round one was born. I thought this is something we can both get behind and push, you know.
It was quite a long-winded process for 4 tunes with all the elements, so I was like, I'm going to do this myself, you know, like I really wanted to do it myself. Over dinner one night, my sister Sarah said, why don't you start a label, you know? I was like, well, that sounds a bit out there, because you have this impression that starting a record label, you've got to get corporate offices, you've got to do this, that and the other, but it's not. So Sarah drew the original Ram logo on a bit of A4 paper after dinner. Because I'm at Aries, she said, why don't you call the label Ram?
Do you believe in star signs and all that cosmic stuff? Well, the man behind #1 singles Hot Right Now and Louder, DJ Fresh, does.
When you went back to that period, it was literally like 80% of all the people that I was kind of like, you know, I really like these guys and I really respect what they're doing musically. We were all Aries. Weirdly, me, Andy, Groove Rider, I was sub-focus as well. One of the little known facts about the drum and bass scene is like an Aries conspiracy going on.
It was like graffiti sort of writing with the horns round the wrong way, coming out the top of the A. They should have been round the other way, but that's how I drew it.
That's Sarah, Andy's sister. She works at Ram today. Not only did she draw the logo, but she's also the one responsible for getting Andy hooked on dance music in the first place.
I used to go to raves a lot back in the day, and I think my mum was on holiday and he had his friends staying over and I was going out, so I was like, come on then. So they came with us and had the time of their lives, apparently.
It was an amazing eye-opener. I think I was 13, 14. The instrumental was getting played alongside Voodoo Ray. And I remember school on a Monday morning was basically, I know something you lot don't, you know, like I have seen the world.
I've seen the light.
Yeah.
Andy had got a taste of the nightlife, but he still wasn't old enough to get in the clubs, so he had to listen to it on the radio.
Growing up around here, we're lucky to have the pirate radio station. Centre Force was huge. Centre Force 88.3, Sunrise 88.7. And, you know...
You remember the frequency?
Yeah, mate, because that...
remember the phone
that was, yeah.
Major number.
323 with a 099, that was perfection. There you go. 0831 323 099. Call in for your dedications. Yeah, I was in it. During that period, there was work experience placement comes up at school. I put down 3 banks who happened to work there, but this man here, Mr. Scott Bourne, a red one. And Scott happens to put on raves in Ockington. And it was like sort of one of them moments where it's like, you're kidding me. And you was putting on a party.
Yeah, I was putting on a party a couple of weeks later, playing on a pirate radio station.
Imagine for me sitting there just like, I've gone to work experience.
In a bank.
And suddenly the guy that I'm working with, you know, putting on parties, pirate radio and like, you know.
All right, give us the tunes and we'll get them on the radio.
Next up on the decks, the tune that really put Ram on the map, Ram 04. A track that Andy wrote when he was just 16 alongside Ant Miles. Origin Unknown's Valley of the Shadows.
Well, it's a seminal track.
Saul from Chasing Status.
It sold more copies on vinyl than any other drum bass record or something like that. Came this really poignant phrase about I've been in this long dark tunnel, and he just made this really cool rolling tune with a really sick bass line, and it just was this massive record, and you had to be deaf not to know about it in the clubs.
Felt that I was in this long dark tunnel.
Ram's most recent signing and the guy behind the massive tune Headlock, René Levice.
I was in this record store in downtown Toronto, and the owner of the shop was mixing a copy of Valley of the Shadows and Super Sharp Shooters. And it was one of those moments where you're just like, that is like the coolest thing I've ever seen. I need both those, and I just took them home. And that was like the first Ram record that I ever bought.
I personally remember this was on a tape that my cousin gave to me. It took me about 7 years to figure out what it was actually called. Long Dark Tunnel, 31 Seconds.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, that would be the seminal record. In fact, a lot of the people that we've spoken to for this documentary.
Yeah, that was the catalyst, really.
I think it took about 4 hours to make. It literally just fell out of the computer.
And at the bell line, that really had something about it. And then the B line just fell out of nowhere. And then Ant pops up with like, I've got wicked vocal for that sample, it's perfect.
Which came off a BBC programme that featured near-death experiences.
Did the lights go off, you know, now we're getting a vibe and now the lights are off. The string line came on top and it was just slayed us. And literally, press play and the tune was written. By 5 minutes, it was just done. This should come next, that should come next, da, 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 da. And we're just dancing, and then it went, that was really cool, wasn't it? Should we play it back?
Andy remembers taking it down to his local record shop in Romford, Boogie Times.
I went down there with the tape, TDK, and I played it. And I won't say who, but I remember that they was like, kind of prefer the touch, and it kind of burst my bubble a little bit. We really was into it, but everything at the time was hardcore based, which was more in line with what is the A side, the touch. Because Valley of the Shadows
was originally a B side.
Was the B.
Playing at Boogie Times was one of Andy's first jobs.
31 seconds.
I used to get to mix records behind the counter all day on a Saturday because Saturdays were so busy. It was record shop community vibes. Everyone used to go. The shop was rammed.
It was also exactly the right kind of place to get your records heard by the right kind of people. Red One, aka Scott.
You play a record, if there's a crowd there, word of mouth will spread and they get played that night.
I think we pressed up a couple of thousand. They went within like a day or two, and then can we have another 2,000? Can we have another 2,000? Can we have another 5,000? And it just went, you know, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, every time distributor called, I'm like, this is going to be another order, isn't it? And it was amazing.
I was in this long, dark tunnel.
31 seconds.
That track was made almost 20 years ago, and it still sounds as fresh now as it did back then. And when we were at Ram HQ last week, they were busy ordering yet another repressing of this timeless track. Ant Miles.
That was the track that opened the doors for both me and Andy, specifically with Andy with his DJing.
Even though he still wasn't legally old enough to be playing in the clubs.
More brilliant than the sun.
It's Fabio. I remember hearing Andy in his early days, man. He was wicked. He's nowhere as intense and as technically good as he is now, but he had something about him. And I remember him coming up to me, he had long hair like a mullet.
The curtains.
See, I'm hearing mullet.
Yeah, well, just Fabio to compliment me, like. Well, no, I did. I approached him.
Were you intimidated by those guys at that point?
Massively. I don't think intimidated, like in a sense of like, oh, you know,
a little bit in awe, I guess.
In awe, I mean, it's Fabio and Groove Rider, you know.
Drum and bass, even now to this day, is a very inside scene. Not a lot of DJs break through. You have to be gifted. Andy done it on Raw Talent.
fresh.
I was quite young when I started. I was 19, a bit older than he was, but I always had respect for him, knowing how this guy had gone out into a very intense world at that point. You know, there were guns and knives in clubs back then, you know, it was like really serious. And Andy was a 16-year-old kid that was standing in front of these crowds, and they respected him because he was so amazing at DJing.
Drum and bass and dubstep duo Delta Heavy.
When we saw him last year at Secret Garden and the third deck broke and he was down to 2 decks and he just went for it even more. It was ridiculous. It was one of those magical sets.
He had like dub plates under each deck, 3 between his legs, 2 in his hands, and then was like mixing with his face.
Yeah.
I was probably a bit of a kind of Andy C little clone when I was like a teenager DJing in my bedroom. He basically influenced the whole style of mixing drum and bass that I think everyone now takes for granted, teasing in clips of tunes and just this whole double drop form of mixing where, you know, the breakdowns are in sync with each other and the tunes drop together to just give this massive sound. And he started that and was a massive influence on us in terms of the way we mix drum and bass, and I think for thousands of other bedroom DJs around the world.
And in case you didn't know what Andy is capable of, here's a little snippet of him behind the decks at Radio 1's Hackney Weekend.
Let's go! This is the countdown! Get him up, get him up! Get him up, get him up! Get him up, get him up, get him up, get him up! Hey, get him up! Hey, get him up! You, get him up! You, get him up! Get 1, 2, 3, 4, go! Let's go, let's go! Hey, 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 hey! Mr. Andy C, MTTQ, we go in, baby! Drum and bass at its finest. Ready to lose the mind? Oh my God! Here we go! What? Somebody scream! DJ, Andy C, DQ, bring it up! Somebody say yeah! Somebody say hell yeah! Beautiful. Hackney Martian sounds super special. Something super special right now. Ready to take you away. Ready to take you away. We take you on a journey. Drums and bass. Listen. Raise them, get him. Let me see him. Let me see him. baby. Andy CTQ in the building. BBC Radio 1 week on Indeed. Let's go, let's go. Ready to ride. Ready to ride. Oh, kick it up, 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 kick it, kick it, kick it, kick it, kick it, 1, 2, 3, 4, go. What's my DJ's name? We're bringing it Andy, 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 say, Andy, 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 Andy. Let's rock, let's roll. We're bringing you the different flavor. We're bringing you the different flavor. Oh, here we go. 1. Go, 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 go. Easy. We taking it down. Sounds with D&B. Alongside the Andy and CQ. Oh. Oh yeah. Listen. Ready to ride, ready to roll. The next record off the shelf, we're heading back to 1996, an era when drum and bass was in its heyday. Ram 17, Shimon and Andy C's
Quest and Night Flight, definitely game changers. And it was amazing at the time because both tracks were massive tunes. I remember looking at that record in wonder and just being like, how is this possible? And then I'd be like, okay, well, I really, really like this side. And then I'd play the other side and I'm like, I don't know, maybe this one's the better one. It used to really freak me out. I couldn't understand how two such amazing tunes could be on the same record.
Shim and I just had, so we was going out raving together, you know. We knew we wanted to make a dance floor smash. I played at the Island in Ilford for Desire in 95 when it was on dubplate 10-inch, and that was the first time I played it out, and it was just like smash.
This was the first tune that Andy made with his new Akai sampler, the S3000. This brand new bit of equipment signalled the beginning of a new era and the Ram sound.
Just like the sound of those tunes at that point, they had this sort of technical, funky, futuristic sound that was very unique to Ram.
All of us there, you know, Shim, Moving Fusion, and we loved the idea of the future. We all used to play computer games, so I guess there was always an element of futuristic, off-world, space travel kind of vibe. Yeah, all of our samples come from them kind of films, and so I guess that if we had a sound, the genesis was in that
sci-fi.
Yeah, sci-fi vibe.
You can hear any of those futuristic sounds in the early Ram trilogy tracks, the Speed of Sound LP, or the massive Sound in Motion LP that included a tune that almost every single Ram artist cited as their favourite, Moving Fusion's Turbulence. For many artists on Ram's roster today, it was around this era that they first started listening to drum and bass. Sub Focus.
Yeah, I remember hearing Andy play for the first time, probably 96, something like that. So I was basically a kid. I sort of followed him since then, and I guess when I started buying vinyl was when I'd really sort of became aware of all the music that they were doing. Tracks like Turbulence by Moving Fusion were like massive favourites of mine.
Lodestar.
One of the first bits of vinyl I actually bought was the Sound in Motion album that had track like Turbulence on it by Moving Fusion, which was absolutely classic. Whenever we went into record shops, and if you were lucky enough to see a Ram promo or a brand new Ram release, it was always literally a buy on site, and there was not a lot of labels that were like that, but Ram, you always knew that it would be a massive tune, so it was always one that you wanted in your box to play out that weekend.
As a DJ, Andy gets the perfect opportunity to test drive tracks in a crowd before he decides to sign them.
I remember playing at a club called Atomics in Maidstone for Pure Science. That tune just started smashing the places to bits, you know, they really caught a vibe. I was like, that tune's going to be a monster.
Sparfunk of Moving Fusion remembers making it.
I think it's one of the tracks where we basically took everything good out of all the other tracks that didn't release and put them all into one tune. The best drums, best samples, the best whoosh sounds. We didn't realise at the time, obviously, that it was going to be a banger, but the first time I heard it, we tagged along, Andy played down there, and it wasn't even a great mix down at the time, but it went down really well.
And it still goes down well today. Lodestar.
We quite often still play Turbulence in our sets, you know, because they're classics and people still know them, you know, even though you're playing to like a different crowd these days that don't necessarily know a lot of the tunes from back in the day, like the Ram ones still sound so good that people recognise them.
Off the back of their massive success with the Sound in Motion LP, Ram secured their first club night. In 1998, Ram set up residency at the End in London. Club owner Leo of Leo and Bushwhacker.
The most amazing thing about Ram was, in the whole history of the End, it was the most consistent night. Complete roadblock, queues round the block. There was never, ever a bad Ram, which, when you're running a night as regularly for sort of, I don't know how long they did it there, 12 years, that's an incredible feat.
It was a regular pilgrimage for many D&B fans, and some of those fans even ended up getting the opportunity to play there. Sub Focus.
They were a massive beneficial thing for me because I lived in London, so I'd go to every one. I started playing at them, and it's just a great way to test new tracks. And that club is amazing because the crowd was right in your face, so you could really get such an instant reaction from tracks. So that was a sort of big part of developing my sound.
Unfortunately, after 12 years, the end shut, and Ram had to come to an end. And of course, they went out with a bang.
I'm really proud of what we did in there, and I'm glad as a crew and a label we got to experience it. And I think everybody that's on board now, it still means something to everybody.
Funny enough, Focus said he remembers your set in particular.
Listening to the entire of Andy's set that night, which was unbelievable. One mix that he did, Ronnie Size, Out of the Game, mixed with Babylon, which is a classic old jungle tune. He rewound about 7 or 8 times and everyone was still baying for more.
That's probably a bit over the top on the rewind. We're probably being a bit self-indulgent towards the end.
Well, let's be honest, if after 11 years in the club you can't be a bit self-indulgent in your last set, then I think there's no other place you can be.
But up until this point, drum and bass was just an underground genre.
Hey, what's happening? This is Scream.
What's happening? This is Benga. When I think of Ram Records, I think of Bodyrock.
That was an extreme game changer. Just the whole triplet thing. I think may have been done, but not done with such devastating effect.
Production was great, the intro was great. It was one of them records that had absolutely everything about it.
It still goes off. Yeah. It is still a banger. It's still not got the normal noises. It's like...
Produced by Andy C and Shimon, Bodyrock sounded totally different to everything that had come before. Fresh remembers hearing it at the #1 dub plate cutting joint, Music House.
It was the first time I'd ever heard a swung beat. I'm sure people had done it, but in terms of a big tune that people were playing, people knew that it was a big statement thing for Andy C to make a tune like that. And there was a mixed reaction to it. I was definitely one of the people that really liked it. I just knew it was going to smash it.
We went to Drum and Bass Awards and I just cut it on dub, and the after party was at Bar Rumba and everybody from the scene was there. It was pretty good timing, and I started my set with it and it got rewound I don't know how many times. I remember Ronnie Size coming running over to the what is this?
I think it was the only instrumental track Radio 1 had B-listed.
Yeah, at the time, Radio 1 put it on the B list.
And this is before...
2001. I mean, that just wasn't happening. Never happened.
And that kind of gave a resurgence to all that drum and bass.
Had Bad Company with More Fire.
Marky and Stamina.
Yeah, LK.
Okay. You had Shy Come Shake Your Body.
Yeah, it was a really golden era.
Because we didn't even know what the playlist was up until that point. That was 100% because of Andy.
I remember Chris Moles playing it and they was like, what?
He was cussing it, wasn't he? I think when he was in the afternoon, he was cussing it. But we didn't care because he played about 4 times.
Yeah, it was like, because he did, didn't he? He made a joke out of it and ended up playing it again. What the hell is it? What the hell, you know, let me know what you think.
Get your hands up cause you think you got it. Going crazy when not even started. Ooh, it's so funny that you think you're winning, cause somebody told you who was spinning. You know you're rolling in it cause it's hot right now. Hot right now, turn it up right now. Put your hands in the air if you want it right now. Hot right now. You know you're rolling in it cause it's hot right now. Hot right now, turn it up right now. Put your hands
Fresh from his number one tracks Hot Right Now and Louder. But back in the day when he decided to part from the drum and bass supergroup Bad Company, Ram was the perfect place for him to begin his solo career.
The Music Maker EP was kind of like a chance for me to show that outside of Bad Company that I could make good music on my own. For that EP to come out on Ram, it sort of solidified that. It's funny because when I first saw the Ram logo, I really didn't like it. The Metalheads logo was so sick. It was like this really dark, evil skull, you know, and you just wanted to have that on your wall. I kind of had to overcome the horns thing. Even though I didn't really like that image, it was what it meant. You had the seal of approval of the Godfather.
Fresh told us that back in the day you were his mentor.
Really?
No,
Well, that's
he said he's mental.
There's been a few after parties.
But does he send you over any of the stuff that's been or is going to be on the album?
Yeah, and he'll send me clips and snippets and ideas and all that. And we've always had that kind of relationship. Fresh normally calls me really late at night. Guarantee if I'm just about to go to bed, the phone rings and it's going to be Dan.
Yeah, I sent Andy my most recent tune, The Feeling. Asked him his opinion on some stuff and he was really helpful with it. My arrangement of underground drum and bass instrumental tracks has been really influenced by Andy because Andy thinks about things from the perspective of a DJ. I think the very first rewind I ever had that I remember was from Andy, probably when I was like 19. I can't remember what track it was, but that became something that was very important to me in my drum and bass career. It was watching Andy C rewinding my tracks, and that was like, you know, yes or no as to whether I finished it or whether it got released.
If you ever go down to Dan's studios, the amount of ideas the guy's got, he is a musical genius, I think, you know, and he's getting a lot of success now. It's fully deserved because he's pretty shifty. Yeah. I mean, like the anthem list for our scene is as long as your arm. And
see, that's the thing. I think, you know, you hit the nail on the head. He served his time, and the fact is that he can do anything.
Yeah.
And what he seems, you know, the fact that he's the person that had the first ever drum and bass number one.
Yeah.
The fact that he's the person also to have the first ever dubstep number one.
Yeah, he's kind of done all right, hasn't he?
When the water feels too deep, I will lead you to the feeling. And I will give you what you need.
Next up, Sub Focus. Now, you may know him from tracks such as
It comes right out the blue. And when she casts her spell, there's nothing you can do.
And of course, but next on the decks is one of the label's biggest selling 12s and the record that began his career. Ram 55, Sub Focus's X-Ray and Scarecrow. And Andy went through a right ordeal to get hold of the producer behind the demo.
I was playing in a club in Maidenhead. At the end of the set, this guy comes up to me and he's like, look mate, I know you must get this all the time, but here's a CD, it's a friend of mine, it's wicked, trust me. A few weeks later I'm home and I'm going through all the demos and I just came to this CD with a phone number on there, incomplete phone number in marker pen. Classic. That's how you give out your demos, isn't it, you know? Because I got to the end and the end number was rubbed off, so I basically dialed the number and then started at 0, 1, 2, 3 until I got to the one that connected me through to somebody. The tunes were amazing. I mean, obviously I don't do that with every demo I get. I just had to speak to the guy that made it.
Andy originally called me completely out of the blue, and initially I thought it was a piss take.
So he's like, yeah, whatever, you know, who is it? And I'm like, no, seriously, your music's amazing.
I ended up getting off the phone with him pretty shocked, and then I realised that Andy was playing at Fabric that night, so I called him back, got some guest list, and heard my tunes for the first time in a club. A pretty good day.
As soon as X-Ray got played out, when that riff come in the intro, everybody's going off in the rave before the tune's dropped, and I'm like, this is the first time I've even played this, and it's just a riff coming in. But it had that electricity, that undefinable thing that a tune's got about it. I don't know whether he puts dog whistles in there that we can't hear or what he does.
I think a lot of people would say that he's brought a more electro sound to Ram. Would you say that's fair?
Without a doubt. But that's Nick, he's eclectic, he takes inspiration from a lot of places, and I think that's what makes a Sub-Focus sound.
Do you think that you were kind of, by this point in Ram's life, open to hearing and putting out other stuff than drum and bass?
When you got a talent like Nick, it's like explore your mind, you know? If that's what you want to do, then don't hold back, you know, don't think that you've got to fit this certain mould. I think D&B producers are some of the most talented in the world. When they do explore themselves, we've all seen the fruits of their labours, whether it be, you know, the Nicks, the Chasing Statuses, you know, Pendulum, Fresh. Yeah. I mean, that's what it's all about. So we made that transition into being a label where we encouraged them to work on the albums. Nick picked up the baton with that, and so did Chasing Status.
Which brings us perfectly onto Dumpling Rhythm. Next up, Ram 64, Chasing Status. When did you first hear of Will and Saul?
Well, they was very prolific producers in the drum and bass scene and have made some of the all-time classics. Obviously, In Love, classics like that, you know, Love's Theme, you know, I mean...
They were exploring different sounds.
They was.
Like different vibes, like dark.
They did Duppy Man. And I remember playing that down at Fabric, and that got 3 or 4 rewinds, and people were like, what the...
Saul from Chasing Status.
That same night, I happened to be at Renegade Hardware night at the end, and I was going to go to Fabric anyhow, but I didn't. And I remember getting a phone call saying, yeah, Andy C just reloaded it 6 times at Fabric.
And like Dave was calling me like, you just play it, you know, and it was like, yeah, man, the tune's just gone on. I knew it was different, you know, and it absolutely obliterated the place. That was really the point. Everything changed for us in our career. And started speaking to Andy more regularly, who'd love the track, and then we realised, okay, he's obviously really into what we're doing. And when we used to send him tunes and his name would pop up like, yo, love the tunes, we'd, you know, be jumping around the studio like excited children. I remember being at Rave at the end at Bagley's, at Telepathy, and saying I want to be the guy in the booth, basically want to be Andy C, do what he's doing. And now we're doing that, and we got signed to his label, and it was just, yeah, I guess dreams come true.
DC Breaks.
When they put out Eastern Jam, that was a real watershed moment for Chasing Status, but also the label as well, because up to that point, I don't think they'd really done anything other than release jungle and drum and bass. People even then didn't really necessarily even know what dubstep was. It wasn't like it is now where it's like on the radio all the time. That definitely made a bit of a statement, the way that the label and the music and drum bass and bass music as a whole was going to evolve.
I remember getting a promo of Mistajam and I played it and I loved it and I kept looking at the label going, Ram, but it's a dubstep record, but it's on Ram.
The first time I ever heard that, we did a Ram Christmas party at the end. I was chatting to them outside the club before they went in to play, and they're like, we've just done this tune, don't know how it's going to be, it's kind of dubstep, but we're going to play it, what do you reckon? And I was like, yeah, play it. And I was thinking, I'm not sure how that's going to work either, but you know, just play it. I mean, this is the end, this is Ram at the end. I mean, you know what? 3 rewinds, started with it, smashed the place to bits, monstrous. And then from there, it's like the tune just was like wildfire. I think it was a bold move on their part to start a set with it down at Ram at the end.
Definitely. But a bigger move for you to put it out?
Yes, it would have been a bit weird to put it out in isolation on its own if there wasn't a story to go with it. Or...
It's a big tune, it's a different tune, a bit like Bodyrock was, you know, 5-6 years ago before that.
A bit like Valley of the Shadows was at that point.
Yeah.
Chasing status. I was raised in the city. Against odds. I would not lose.
I think the success of More Than A Lot, Chasing Status's debut album on Ram, really shows the strength of Ram's kind of commitment to push what was a bit of an unknown sound, and you only have to look at where Chasing Status are today to see that that was a wise decision.
Hurt You has been massive for them. We know we've got Smash TV on the album, so it's not like, what have you put that out for? That doesn't make any sense. It's like, no, it's part of the bigger picture. It's all going to make sense that these artists are more than what you've known them for, and it's all going to come together on the album package.
And also, for a lot of people, it reminds them that Ram is more than just a drum and bass label. It's a home for artists and it's a home for good music.
That's what I'd like to say. It's a home for artists.
So, looking back on the last 20 years, was it a conscious decision for you to be here 20 years down the line doing this?
Absolutely not. It was my conscious decision to press a white label instead of getting a job in the summer of '92. Do you know what I mean?
I think when you're like 16, 17, you're like, yeah, I want to do music. And you're like, will you still be doing it 20 years later? You're like, no way.
I think
old people don't do that sort of thing.
Just how did they achieve the phenomenal feat of 20 years in the game? Sub Focus,
One of the things that Ram have done well at is they've been, you know, one of these labels that actually run properly. When I started getting into releasing dance music, there were quite a few cowboys out there, either people not getting paid or people saying they'll release a track and then sitting on it for a year. And Ram have always been well run, and that's basically, you know, what sort of stood them in good stead.
DJ Fresh.
The organisation of the label and the effort that was put into trying to take the music further, we found inspiring as a label with Breakbeat Chaos. And when we heard Pendulum stuff, we just thought, this is what's going to take it that step further. A lot of the lessons that we'd learnt as a label had come from stuff that had been pioneered by labels like Ram.
Saul from Chasing Status.
And you know what, Ram, they're just, it's quality over quantity. 90% of it has been incredibly good quality drum and bass. And now you've got weirdos like us and Sub Focus and Wilkinson making other weird music, and the Ram are happy to release that. And I think turning with the times, because in drum and bass there was a lot of people who were just like, you do drum and bass, you do nothing else, and that's how you've got to be. Ram are more open-minded and let people be them rather than like be dictated to by tempo.
Calix.
Definitely, they're really open-minded. But I'd say they're ambitious, which is obviously a massive factor. And, you know, Andy is the figurehead of the genre. There's no substitute for that. You know, he's the king.
DC Breaks.
It's a kind of label that everyone always checks, regardless of if they know the artist or the track. It does have that kind of feel of a seal of quality, if you like.
Lodestar.
You look at a lot of the labels that have been so prominent in the early years of drum and bass, and they just haven't managed to sustain it. And I think Ram has really been open to bringing through new artists. By doing that, it's kept the label moving with the times.
Sub Focus.
Over time, they've had very strong artists. Initially, the likes of Andy and Shimon, and then Ram Trilogy, Moving Fusion. And then, without wanting to sound big-headed, I think me and Chasing Status kind of carried the label for a bit. And now there's so many amazing different producers, from Wilkinson.
When Andy first hit me up, you know, that was just a dream come true. You know, I always thought I've got to send him something hard that he can smash out in a club, but actually I sent him a tune called Every Time, and I just had an intro, and it was a piano intro and some strings, and it didn't have a drop, so there was no bass in it. I sent it to him, I was like, oh, this is just a little intro that I'm working on. He called me up the next day and he said, oh, you know, I love it, like, you've got to make a tune out of it. Yeah, that really inspired me. He's open to anything.
Delta Heavy. Space Time Takes Stairs really sort of like took us into the drum and bass arena. We felt sort of we'd arrived a bit.
Our second single, Hold Me, it got picked up very early by the likes of Stream and Benga and other dubstep people like Chasing Status, and they were playing it in their sets for kind of months before it was out. That opened doors to the dubstep world for us.
It was always known that we wanted to branch out into other things, like from when we first had the meeting, and you know, they welcomed that.
You know, through to Calix and TB.
I'd certainly say the Ram Trilogy tunes in the early days were like really pivotal in what I wanted to make. Amazing tracks. Cause and Effect was a huge track. Evolution. The early Moving Fusion tracks, Turbulence. I'm sort of only specifying early Ram tracks, but all the way through Ram, it's influenced the whole genre, not just me.
Annie Mac.
In terms of personal favourite releases from Ram, there's even a song at the moment by Calix and TB called Elevate That Sound, which is so strong and such a brilliant radio record.
It had to be now or never, 'cause I was going round in circles, lost forever. I couldn't overcome the hurdles, all or nothing. It was never somewhere in between. Fear of something, it seemed to have a hold on me then.
Hey, what's happening? This is Scream.
What's happening? This is Benga. Been wicked A&Rs by signing Sub Focus, Chasing Status, even Delta Heavy, what they're bringing to the table.
Yeah. I've got to mention Rennie LeVice as well. Absolutely smashing it at the moment. Like, ridiculously.
Absolute monster. Funny story behind that track. The whole reason I made that track was because I was booked to play a Ram night I'd never been to the UK before. I'd never been to Fabric before, obviously. So this was kind of a special thing for me. It was going to be my first gig in the UK. It was going to be in one of the best clubs in the UK. Because like a Ram night's a really busy night, you know, it's packed, there's loud music all night, it's really crazy vibe. What if you just kind of like pulled the plug? It would just sounded like creeping back in, just like creeping through the walls. When you least expect it, just sort of bursts out, gets everybody rolling again and just swallows you alive.
The secret to Ram's longevity is without a doubt Andy C's mesh cap. Because whatever's feeding through that cap into his hair, into his brain, I don't know, but every label needs one of them.
Mesh caps? Whatever, toddler. Wilkinson.
We recently went to Las Vegas. There was a Ram takeover night at EDC, which has got to be one of the biggest festivals in America. There's like 300,000 people. Just seeing how many people appreciated the Ram stage, you know, it's thousands and thousands of people. Skrillex and David Guetta and Tiesto playing on the stage behind us, but it was just, people are craving the drum and bass out there now, and you know, Ram's at the forefront of that.
DC Breaks.
You know, the whole world listens to it now, so you can go anywhere and play drum bass and people know it, which definitely wasn't the case 20 years ago.
Delta Heavy.
You know, Ram has played a massive part of that, and I guess Andy has been an ambassador, playing at all these festivals week after week after week, year after year, and has been probably the main factor in it kind of spreading and getting so big globally.
31 seconds.
In 20 years, well, there wasn't drum and bass 20 years ago, but in the early periods of drum and bass, there was only underground. Now what's a lovely thing is we're having commercial success, and at the same time, there's totally uncompromising hardcore D&B nights going on.
And that's the good things with artists like Chase and Status or Fresh, because they're always got one foot still there. They've got that underground mentality, but they want to make sure that the roots of what put them where they are is still looked after.
Just talking for this programme has just reminded me of how many artists we've had appear, whether they be signed artists or in remix form or guest artists.
Yeah, I guess we've been a common factor in a lot of them, either by way of the label and them having tunes out on it, or by Andy's influence as a DJ and playing the music out. You know, there's something connecting it back to Ram.
Felt that I was in this long, dark